I had just completed a 32-hour patrol at sea and received a text message that destroyed my entire life. My name is Ethan Blake, U.S. Army Lieutenant Commander. I'm 45 years old. I serve at Naval Station Norfolk, Virginia, the largest naval base in the world. For the past 20 years, I've spent more time on the ocean than on land. Warships are my home. Radar screens are my stars. And endless nights on alert have been my routine. I never complained. I chose this life to serve and protect, and I truly believed if I kept peace out there, my family would remain the peace I came home to. I was wrong. That night, after a relentless 32-hour combat drill in the Atlantic, I returned to my small quarters on the USS San Jacinto, a 2-by-3-meter metal box tucked deep in the ship's belly. My home away from home. There was a single bed, a built-in desk, and a dim yellow light casting shadows on the family photo I had taped in the corner. My wife, my son, and I smiling together. I turned on my phone, a rare luxury at sea. At the top of the screen was a message from my wife sent 3 days ago. Just 2 lines. I want a divorce. The papers will come soon. No hey, no explanation, no emotion, just a sentence. Cold, precise, like a bullet to the chest. I stared at the screen, frozen. My heart skipped a beat, my breath caught. It felt like a sniper had taken me out from 10,000 miles away. I read it again, as if the letters might change, but they didn't. My head dropped, my hands trembled, my pulse pounded in my ears. I've stood face to face with armed pirates. I've ridden out storms that could flip a destroyer, but nothing prepared me for this. 3 weeks later, I left the ship and went back home. I had mentally prepared myself for the worst, or so I thought, but nothing could prepare me for feeling like a ghost in my own life. I opened the front door of our townhouse just outside Norfolk. Silence. Cold, hollow silence. The living room, empty. Sofa gone, TV gone. The curtains we picked out together, ripped down. The bedroom, closet stripped bare. Our bed still stood, but naked. The nursery, abandoned. Not even a stuffed toy left. The safe, empty. I opened my banking app. Balance, 0 hours. Not just betrayal. She cleaned me out. She didn't leave a note, not a call, not even a sticky note on the fridge. I sank to the floor, back against the wall where our wedding photo used to hang. And pulled the only thing I had left, an old photo of us, from my wallet. There I was, in dress uniform, holding my son, with my wife smiling beside me. That photo had traveled across oceans with me, sat beside me through war games and deployments. It reminded me, you have something to come home to. But I didn't, not anymore. I didn't cry. But inside something cracked, hard. I'd survived hurricanes in the open sea, but this storm, it tore through everything I believed in. Why? What the hell happened behind my back? I didn't know, but I knew this. I wasn't going to let it end this way. I began piecing things together, bit by bit, from the moment I received that text message to the second I saw my bank account stripped clean. None of it felt like an accident. This wasn't a failed marriage. This was a plan, deliberate, calculated, timed, and she wasn't just a wife walking away. She was either the mastermind or at least the perfect accomplice. I returned to our old neighborhood, knocked on familiar doors. Most neighbors either avoided eye contact or offered vague, rehearsed replies. A few pretended not to remember who I was. Only one person spoke the truth, the widow next door. She stood quietly behind her screen door, watching me for what felt like forever. Then she finally said, she moved out fast, about 2 months ago, left with some man, drove a luxury car, might have been someone from her past. Someone from her past? The name hit me like a punch. Mark Lafferty. Her ex, her first love. I remembered the way she once brushed him off when I found old photos. Just a college fling. I believed her. I wanted to, but I was a fool. I started digging. In a desk drawer, I found a crumpled real estate flyer, stained with a faint lipstick mark. A shipping invoice led to a luxury address just outside the city, and most damning of all, a deed of sale for our condo, signed by her and a company named Lafferty & Company Holdings. She sold our home while I was deployed at sea. Not only that, she sold my Jeep, the one I'd saved years to buy. Gone. My watch, a graduation gift from the Naval Academy. Gone. My custom warship model collection, decades in the making. Gone. She didn't just take money, she erased memories. She sold a lifetime of service like it was furniture at a garage sale. I accessed our old joint banking account. Dozens of large withdrawals. Funds moved to shell accounts. Everything happened like clockwork during my deployments. Precision, deception, but every crime leaves a trail. And she wasn't perfect. Then it clicked. Mark, the man behind it all. He was a real estate guy, knew the legal loopholes, knew how to transfer ownership without raising flags. He had a tax evasion scandal 8 years ago, but slipped through on a technicality. And now he was back, not just to reclaim a former lover, but to strip me of everything I had. And her, the woman who once called me her safe harbor, she became a cold-blooded betrayer. No apology, no regret, no hesitation. She executed everything like it was business. She didn't just abandon a husband, she betrayed a soldier. I called Steve, an old friend from military intelligence who later worked in financial crime. After reviewing the documents, he looked at me hard and said, "Ethan, this isn't a divorce. This is organized financial fraud." I didn't flinch, just clenched my jaw. The pieces fell into place. The swift property transfers, the hidden accounts, the staged departure, the timing, all perfectly aligned with my assignments at sea. I drove to that address listed on the shipping receipt, a gated neighborhood lined with imported cars and trimmed hedges. I didn't knock. I just stood at the sidewalk, watching. A boy rode past on his bicycle and stared at me. I didn't blink. I already knew the truth. She was in there, living a new life on my blood, my trust, my years. And what hurt most wasn't the money. It was knowing she did it while I was defending the country, believing I had someone back home worth protecting. I returned to our empty condo, sat on the floor, closed my eyes. I saw our wedding day, her in white, tears in her eyes. I saw the day I shipped out for my first deployment. She hugged me tight, whispered, "I'll be right here." I saw the last time I held our son before boarding that damn ship. All lies. I looked around. The plaques were gone, the photo frames were gone, just peeling paint and echoing silence. But I wasn't broken. I was angry. This wasn't over. I wasn't going to crawl away like some defeated man in uniform. No, I've faced war zones. Now I'd face something worse, a war for justice. I used to fight for my country. Now I would fight for me. I had fallen. Completely. The apartment was bare, just me, a dim yellow bulb overhead, and a silence so thick it felt physical. There was nothing left. No furniture, no photos, not even the scent of her perfume. Only the ticking of a wall clock, the one thing she didn't bother to take. Maybe she left it as an insult, a reminder that my time had run out. I slumped to the floor, back against the wall. My hands were buried in my face. No tears came, not because I didn't want to cry, but because there was nothing left to cry with. It was like someone had stolen the engine from my chest and replaced it with a hollow. I had survived typhoons and gunfire, but I wasn't prepared for this kind of devastation. I thought of quitting, walking away, letting it all burn. But then my eye caught something, a photo frame lying face down near the leg of the table. I picked it up. It was the three of us, me in uniform, my son in my arms, my wife beside me smiling as if she'd never lie. That picture had crossed oceans with me. It had sat in my bunk through every storm. It had reminded me what I was fighting for. Not anymore. Now I had a new fight, not for country, for truth, for myself. I stood up, not with my legs, but with every ounce of will I had left. I called the one person I knew who'd understand. Jake Harrington, fellow Navy man. We'd shared MREs and bullet dodges in Yemen. Now he was a reservist, living quietly on the edge of Norfolk. When he opened the door, he just looked at me. No hug, no handshake, just a solid, knowing look. The kind only brothers in arms understand. You look like you crawled out of a wreck. Get in. We sat at his kitchen table, old wooden legs creaking under us. He poured coffee, thick and black. I told him everything, from the text message to the missing money, the photo, the house, the lies. My voice got colder with every word. My fingers clenched around the mug until my knuckles turned white. Jake said nothing, just listened, the same way we used to listen to the wounded on the field. Quiet, grounded, present. When I finished, he pulled a card from his wallet, slid it across the table. Sarah Miller, lawyer, razor sharp, got me full custody of my kids after my ex tried to frame me. She doesn't lose. I looked at the name, memorized it like a battle plan. The next morning, I walked into Sarah's office. It was a sleek glass building in the city center, nothing flashy, but every corner screamed discipline. She stepped out to greet me, early 40s, platinum blonde hair, tied tight, blue eyes like frost. She didn't smile, didn't shake my hand, just pointed to the seat. I sat. She took notes, opened her laptop, and I told her everything. No trembling this time, no broken voice, just facts. Cold, measured, brutal. She didn't interrupt. She didn't look shocked. She just typed. When I finished, she looked at me, calm, certain, and said, "Ethan, this isn't a divorce. This is organized asset theft, and we're going to make them regret thinking you'd stay silent." That sentence hit me like a shot of adrenaline to the heart. Something in me, maybe belief, sparked again. Sarah laid out a plan. Track every transaction, dig through every real estate document, trace all communications, texts, emails, calls, verify every shell company, every lie. We won't fight with emotion, we'll fight with facts, with law, and we will bury them with the truth. I wasn't the broken man sitting on an empty floor anymore. I was Lieutenant Commander Ethan Blake, and I was going to take back everything they thought they could steal. No one teaches you how to rebuild your life using a printer, a laptop, and stacks of bank statements. Sarah called it a mission to reclaim your honor. I called it a counteroffensive. She gave me a list, structured like a tactical briefing. Flag all suspicious transactions, review real estate transfers, identify unauthorized bum sales, extract digital correspondence between her and Mark Lafferty. I dug into every document I had left. Old emails, insurance papers, utility bills, tax records. The deeper I went, the clearer the pattern became. We uncovered over $400,000 in suspicious transfers within 6 months before the divorce notice. Most of it funneled through a secondary account I never authorized, one that my wife had opened under a legal proxy while I was deployed. Several transfers led to a company with a name I didn't recognize, but Sarah did. A real estate deed worth over $600,000 was signed and notarized during the exact week I was on deployment in the South Pacific. It bore her signature. No notice, no discussion. She sold our home like I was already dead. "That's a breach of joint ownership," Sarah said flatly. "We can file immediately with this." But she wanted more. She brought in a digital forensic investigator, Jack Wu, former NSA, quiet, sharp, methodical. Within 48 hours, he recovered deleted text logs from her phone. I read the messages. "He still thinks I love him. What a joke. The ship has sailed. Literally, he won't know a thing. 70% already transferred to LMC, finishing the rest next week." I had to step outside, not because I was dizzy, but because I was seconds away from smashing the laptop screen. Sarah followed silently, handed me a glass of water. No words, just a hand on my shoulder, firm and grounding. We kept going. I traced dozens of payments linked to a Delaware-based company, LMC Holdings, LLC. Known for loose tax regulations, Delaware was the perfect haven for shell corporations. Sarah did a deep pull on the business license. Same founding number as one of Mark's former ventures, just renamed. And the legal representative's address? The same mansion I had stood outside weeks ago. That was the pivot point. He wasn't just laundering money, he was using my money to rebuild his empire. Piece by piece, we exposed their web, a structure built from deceit, betrayal, and greed. She wasn't a victim. She wasn't manipulated. She was a key player, a willing architect in this machine. I spent nights at my desk, papers everywhere. I couldn't sleep, not because of fear, but because I was finally clear. There was no rage anymore, just precision, like loading a magazine before a mission. I printed everything, highlighted key links, built timelines, created a digital evidence map. When I laid the entire 5-centimeter thick file onto Sarah's desk, she looked up and smiled, for the first time since we met. "Now," she said, "we're ready to strike." Monday, 8:00 a.m. Sharp. One text from Sarah. Filed. War has begun. I stared at it. No smile, no sigh. Only one feeling surged in my chest. It's my turn to strike back. The legal complaint was nearly 200 pages thick. We weren't just suing for divorce. Sarah built a 3-pronged assault. Organized financial fraud, illegal property transfers without consent, conspiracy to defraud using documented evidence. My name, Ethan Blake, printed in bold on page 1. Underneath, a handwritten note from Sarah. No one steps on a soldier's honor. 3 days later, they responded. A cold, sterile legal reply full of vague denials and loophole jargon. It opened with, "Our client denies any intentional wrongdoing." Sarah read it, raised an eyebrow, and chuckled. "Perfect. Let them stay arrogant. It'll hurt more when they fall." A week after that, their lawyer reached out, wanted to discuss settlement terms before court. Sarah refused, without hesitation. "We're not here to negotiate. We're here to expose them." I nodded. No compromise. I didn't want peace. I wanted justice. Then the cracks began to show. LMC Holdings quietly took down its website. One of Mark's properties went up for sale below market value. My ex started avoiding social events she once ruled. It was like watching a fortress bleed from inside. Someone texted me, "How far are you planning to take this?" I answered, "All the way to the truth," in front of a judge. The night before the first hearing, I didn't sleep. I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by folders. Bank statements, recovered messages, fake real estate deeds. A newly unearthed recording of her call with a lawyer where she asked how to transfer funds discreetly while staying legal. I listened to her voice 3 times. It used to be warm. Now it sounded like a stranger speaking from a grave. I dressed slowly. Navy blue suit, white shirt, a tie in U.S. Navy colors. I slipped my old military ID into my pocket. My badge of truth. This wasn't just a court hearing. It was a statement to every traitor who ever thought silence meant weakness. Morning, courthouse steps. Sarah walked beside me, calm and sharp like a drawn blade. Across the lot, my ex, in a black dress, layers of makeup. But her eyes couldn't hide fear. Mark stood beside her, sunglasses, pale. He shook as he signed the attendance sheet. I didn't greet them. No words. We were beyond words. Inside, court came to order. Sarah stood. Her voice cut through the silence like steel. "Your Honor, this is not merely a divorce. This is a calculated operation carried out while the husband was deployed in military service and executed with precision to rob him of everything." No one moved. The judge leaned in. I didn't blink. In that moment, I was no longer the man who was betrayed. I was the man bringing justice to the table. 8:45 a.m. Courtroom 4, Norfolk County. I walked in not to a courtroom, but to a battlefield. Every wooden bench lined like a front line. The air was thick, compressed like a bomb waiting to go off. Across the room, Clara, my ex-wife, wore a black dress, designer bag clutched tight. Her face was carefully made up. but nothing hid the dark circles and swollen eyes. Next to her, Mark Lafferty, in a dark, tailored suit, but the cuffs were uneven and the collar creased. He fidgeted with his phone, scrolling like he was searching for an exit. This hearing, Ethan Blake v. Clara Blake and Mark Lafferty, is now in session. Sarah Miller rose, calm, sharp, unshakable. Your Honor, this case is not about a divorce. It is about an orchestrated financial betrayal, executed by two people who built their scheme on the blind trust of a man serving his country. She dropped the file on the table. A solid thud. No one spoke, not even a breath out of place. The screen lit up. Sarah began dismantling the defense, piece by piece. 1. Financial records. 37 suspicious withdrawals from a joint account. Total, $437,800, all during my deployments at sea. 2. Property transfers. Our condo sold while I was on a Navy vessel. No communication, no consent, no legal notice. 3. Recovered text messages. It's done, he's still offshore. Push everything into LMC. The old company name still works. Leave him nothing. He worships honor, not money. 4. Secret recording. I need to transfer assets before my husband returns. Discreetly. Legal, if possible. Her voice, so familiar, now venomous, filled the courtroom. No tremor, no guilt, just calculated coldness. Mark shifted uncomfortably. The opposing lawyer dabbed sweat. Clara pressed her hand against her face, her fingers trembling. Sarah didn't slow. She pulled out the red folder. The kill shot. This is the corporate registry for LMC Holdings, LLC, the shell company that received the bulk of the stolen funds, owned by Mr. Mark Lafferty under his previously investigated business entity from 2015, once flagged for tax evasion. Registered address, the mansion where he and Mrs. Blake now reside. Mark opened his mouth to speak, but Sarah struck first. Mr. Lafferty, did you declare any of this income to the IRS? Did you disclose to Clara's ex-husband your control of LMC Holdings? Did you file taxes jointly with Clara after transferring hundreds of thousands into a shadow company? He froze. Clara sobbed. The opposing attorney avoided eye contact. They tried to respond. Their lawyer stammered. Mrs. Blake had legal access to the accounts. Sarah turned, voice sharp as a blade. Access is not permission. You don't get to gut a man's life while he's defending his country, then call it marital rights. The judge raised a hand to restore silence. His face had changed, no longer neutral, decided, focused. Sarah stepped back, calm, final. We are not here for sympathy. We are here for justice. For a man betrayed by the very people he protected with his absence. A beat of silence, then the judge spoke. The court accepts the petition for federal investigation into Mr. Mark Lafferty for tax fraud and financial conspiracy. All assets under LMC Holdings and any linked accounts shall be frozen pending review. The plaintiff, Ethan Blake, is granted priority in asset recovery. I stood. The courtroom faded, not because I wanted to leave, but because I had nothing left to search for. Mark's head dropped. Clara collapsed onto the table. Their lawyer began packing up. Pale, defeated, I buttoned my jacket and walked out, slowly, like a man who had just pulled the blade from his back and survived. I had lost a home, a marriage, years of trust, but I walked away with the one thing they couldn't steal, the truth. Mark Lafferty was arrested exactly 21 days after the verdict. It wasn't front-page news, just a short legal blurb at 7:00 a.m. Norfolk real estate investor charged with tax evasion, money laundering, and operating illegal shell corporations. There were no cameras, no interviews, no media circus. But I didn't need to see him behind bars to feel the justice. Watching him bow his head in court was the real sentence. As for Clara, my former wife, she vanished. Word spread that she withdrew her petition to retain personal assets, a quiet retreat. Her new lawyer tried to negotiate a settlement. Sarah refused. She doesn't need property, Sarah said. She needs consequences. The final ruling hit hard. Clara lost all legal claim to any jointly owned properties. She was ordered to repay all misappropriated funds from the joint account. She was charged civil penalties for fraud and ordered to cover all legal costs. Her name was officially added to a federal registry for complex civil fraud. She wasn't going to jail, but she was sentenced in a far worse way. She could no longer escape her past. I returned to our old apartment, not to keep it, but to end it. I took down every picture, unhooked every forgotten coat, and closed the empty safe she once used without hesitation. I cleaned the space, not out of bitterness, but because I didn't need any of it anymore. I found an old photo beneath the bookshelf. It was me, in uniform, arms wrapped around my son on the day he learned to ride a bike. No Clara in that frame, and I smiled. That photo was enough. I sold the apartment, closed the account. Each step felt like cutting through rope, the kind that once held me down. I didn't burn the past. I dismantled it, piece by piece, with my own hands. I moved back near the old naval base, rented a small, modest place. Mornings, up by 5:30, jog along the coast, black coffee, no sugar. Evenings, read a few chapters, write a page or two in a journal, to remind myself that I'm still here, still standing. One night I saw a young couple arguing outside a convenience store. She turned her back. He stood frozen. I walked past them. No judgment. Just one quiet thought. I hope they don't end up where I've been. I wasn't looking for love again. I was looking for myself. The man I was before the betrayal. The one who believed in loyalty, quiet strength, and truth, even when it hurts. Someone asked me at a veterans gathering, if you could go back, would you still love her? I paused for a long time, then answered, yes, because if I stop believing in love, in loyalty, in giving everything, then I'm no longer the man I was proud to be. I learned how to forgive, not her, but myself. For trusting too blindly, for giving too much, for standing too long when I should have walked away sooner. I don't need anyone to come back and apologize. I don't need them to beg for forgiveness. I only need one thing now, to look in the mirror, smile, and know I was betrayed. I lost everything. I was pushed to the edge, but I didn't stay there. I walked out, alone and stronger than I've ever been. This story isn't just mine. Maybe you've never worn a military uniform. Maybe you've never stood in court and looked into the eyes of someone who betrayed you. But if you've ever trusted someone with your heart, with your future, and they walked away, taking everything without looking back, then you know what it feels like to be torn open by silence, to lose everything and wonder if anyone even noticed you survived. And if you're still here, still standing, still listening to this story, then I want you to hear this. You're stronger than you think. I didn't tell this story to feed bitterness. I told it to remind myself, and maybe remind you, that the truth is still worth defending, trust is still worth giving, and honor is never out of date. If you're going through betrayal or you've been through it, I hope this story made you feel less alone. If you've already gotten back up, I'm proud of you, because the hardest part isn't walking away, it's staying true to who you are after everything. If this story touched you, leave a comment. Tell me your story. You might be surprised how much we have in common. Thank you for listening. I'm Ethan, and I'm still standing.